Thank you, Lester.
We've seen a number of names on the Republican side here who are essentially saying that the president used bad judgment. I'm paraphrasing here, but that what he did was not impeachable, yet they will vote against witnesses. Do you allow that room that the president did something inappropriate?
Well, I think there are a lot of Republicans that would say improper, not impeachable. But then it gets back to the question you just asked Senator Harris, was it all worth it? And I hope the lesson from this, Lester, is to go back to what Chuck Schumer said in 1999 and Gerald Nadler said at the same time, which was you should not do a partisan impeachment. Nancy Pelosi said it last year. A bipartisan, yes, but something that is purely partisan, purely political, is not in the best interest of the country. We've been at this now for weeks. There have been 17 witnesses, thousands of pages of documents, lots of work that hasn't been able to be done in the benefit of the people of the country. And we're ready to vote. I think just about every senator, if not every senator, has announced how they're going to vote on witnesses. So that debate is over. It's now time to vote on the final judgment call.
I'm sure you've heard by now John Kelly was kind of weighing in on all this with regard to what's happening and the John Bolton book. He says if senators don't respond, essentially, it'll be a half-done job if you don't respond to 75% of the American public who wants to hear more witnesses. What do you think about what he had to say?
Well, we're at the point when I was in Wyoming a week or so, 2 weeks ago, Thermopolis, Wyoming, McDonald's, and people said, we want witnesses. And every witness they named, they wanted all of the Democrats. They wanted to see Adam Schiff. They wanted Vice President Biden. They wanted his son. They wanted the whistleblower.
But the idea is they wanted
so
witnesses.
Their idea was that every senator has now spoken. The debate over witnesses is over. We're going to have that final vote within the next 2.5 hours. There will be no additional witnesses. People, members of the Senate, know how they're going to vote. They've had plenty of information. This has been actually a fair trial in the Senate compared to what the House did behind closed doors. Nothing has been in secret sessions in the Senate. Everything has been open, visible on C-SPAN. There were 180 some questions asked and answered by senators. So there's been a lot of information out there. Senators know how they're going to vote. I think it's going to be a bipartisan vote to acquit the president of these charges, and that's where we are right now with the vote coming in the next couple of hours.
You said bipartisan. You think you'll have Democratic votes to acquit?
I believe there will be, and there are a number in the news and in the press that have been listed as potential, and I expect to have I expect to have a bipartisan vote in support of the president on the final vote.
I was just going to say, very quickly, there could be a bipartisan vote to convict as well. It sounds like you aren't convinced that every one of your members, namely perhaps the junior senator from Utah, has committed to his vote yet. Fair enough?
I will let every senator speak for themselves. There is going to be a bipartisan acquittal of President Trump. I believe that there's certainly not going to be the 67 votes. But you can speculate on that, and you can ask individual senators. I have a pretty good idea of how it's going to turn out.
Let me ask you this final question. Because what is essentially happening, if you take Marco Rubio, who believes these are impeachable offenses, and Rob Portman, and Lisa Murkowski, and Lamar Alexander all made similar references to the current climate, the current political climate. Are you comfortable with the fact that if a president amasses enough of a political base, has enough of sort of a stranglehold on a faction, that because of that ability to essentially politically intimidate, perhaps, that it is a rationalization to avoid following the Constitution to the letter of the law?
Well, if you go back to the principles of Madison and Hamilton and those number 65, factions shouldn't control this. That's why they put the number at 67, 2/3 of the Senate, to remove a president. So you don't want this to become weaponized to a regular part of politics.
But in fairness,
as usual.
Mr. Hamilton and Mr. Madison assumed that there was a United States Senate that was not directly elected by the people. And so, you know, they assumed that the Senate would not be as influenced by this. It's possible the direct election of senators would have changed the way the framers viewed this. Fair point, Senator Barrasso?
Well, and then we've changed that. That was changed, what, 107 years ago? So things have been working out all right up till this point, when for partisan and political purposes, one party decided to go and file articles of impeachment when the Speaker of the House said this is a bad idea 9 months ago. But then, based on the fact that a majority of her members said we're going to file and go and sign on and co-sponsor impeachment articles, that's how we got here. This is completely partisan, not like all of the others in the history that arose in bipartisan ways in the best interest of the country.
And Senator, before I let you go, can you confirm whether there has been an agreement worked out between Republican leadership and Minority Leader Schumer about the timing and how this all plays out over the next several days?
It has not yet. Lester, after we vote to not move to witnesses, and that'll be a little later this afternoon or early this evening, then there will be a resolution of the next steps forward. This happened in the Clinton impeachment, the resolution to get to finality. And Chuck Schumer may introduce a dozen amendments or so to that, each debatable for up to 2 hours, like we had occurred just the other night before this whole process started, and that could go well into the night this evening, and only once that final resolution is passed will we know how this ends.
Is there any scenario where it ends before Wednesday?
There are some scenarios that would happen, yes.
All right. Senator Barrasso, again, thank you for your time. We appreciate good talking to you.
Thanks for having me.